You are watching the Walkertown Report. Thank you for watching the Walkertown Report. My guest today is Dan Klefstad, who is a writer and broadcaster who broadcasts from Chicago on WNIJ and has written in a number of fields, but may best be regarded as a person who writes in the horror genre. And his latest book is FIONA'S Guardians, which is a unique novel that centers around guardians who are hired by Fiona, the vampire, to keep her well fed with blood from the blood banks while trying to stay below the police radar. And well, to quote from the Amazon advertisement, when a vampire seduces you, death is minutes away. When she hires you, you'll wish you were dead. Tell me a little bit about your book and about Fiona, because there was a notation on one of your promotions never to say the word vampire to Fiona. So,
right, yeah, which is
kind of a vampire in denial, or?
Not denial. She prefers secrecy. I think it makes sense that I think if you're a creature who has a diet of 10 pints of human blood per night, that you would want to be as secretive as possible. And the humans you hire are also supposed to observe that secrecy. And one of the rules is you never, ever say the word vampire, no matter where you are, because presumably enough humans out there know what that is. And even if it's fake, or they might think it's fictional, that could lead to some discovery that she would not want. She has to sleep during the daytime, so that's when she's most vulnerable. And the human guardians, who also invest her money and procure blood for her, also protect her during the daytime.
Is she one of these vampires that are living forever, like for maybe a couple centuries, or? Yeah,
she's 250 years old, and she's been hiring humans since roughly the early 20th century. And so that's been her mode. She's rather innovative among her vampire family, in that she was the first to hire humans to have somebody between her and murder police. So the trail would never come to her bedroom door. Yeah.
Well, it's actually a long time to learn about investing. So I imagine, it seems most vampires I read are like wealthy dynasties, probably because of all those centuries of learning and investing and things like that.
They're almost always portrayed as aristocratic, which is something I picked up on and I borrowed from when I was putting this novel together. But what sets this apart from other vampire tales is, and when you think about it, there are not many alpha female vampires or stories about them. Most of us can only name one, the vampire from The Queen of the Damned. By Anne Rice. That was Akasha, played very memorably in the film by singer Aaliyah. But other than Akasha, there are very few alpha female vampires out there that people could know about. So I'm hoping that this will be the one that people remember in the future. Fiona.
And it sounds like, just to go further with the book, sounds like her staff might be working a little bit too hard, because while they're paying so much attention to the police, there's like a secret society of monks whose aim is to kill Fiona.
Yes, the secret society, Mors Strige. This is an ancient Catholic order of monks, so secret the Pope doesn't even know about it. But one cardinal is in charge of this organization, and their sole vocation, if you will, is to exterminate vampires. And recently they've come back after a terrible defeat in 1900 in Italy. They've come back, and this time they are flying drones with thermal imagery devices to detect the below freezing vampires. They have now they've ditched the wooden stakes, and now they're using wood-tipped bullets to kill vampires. So they've upped their game technologically speaking, but Fiona's vampire family has kind of fallen into a sort of malaise or even neglect, and they're completely surprised by this story when they kill Fiona's sire, the one who created her, Agrippina, and that's where the story really begins to take off.
Oh, I want to talk about your first novel. Your first novel sounds pretty interesting. That was Shepherd and the Professor. And that one, just from what I've read about it, seems to be more of a real world-based novel, non-vampiric, unless, of course, you're thinking about psychic vampirism, possibly.
No, No. The
No?
first book had nothing to do with the supernatural, but it shares a theme with Fiona's Guardians. Both books are obsessed with the idea of memory, of living on, having. In the case of Shepard, a Gulf War vet, cop, and single mom, Susan Shepard, she has cancer when we meet her, and she knows she's dying. So what she wants to do is write a memoir of her extraordinary story, so that her a book that presumably will never go out of print, so she will always live. With Fiona, the theme of immortality is a little more obvious in terms of the vampire. She will just keep on living unless something catastrophic happens. And there was a question about whether that happens during the cliffhanger. But also the Guardians. The premise of this book is also she's interested in keeping alive the memory of the people who have worked for her. So that's part of what this book is about.
Well, in the description, you're talking about how she's frantically writing to editors, trying to get her book published before the cancer takes its inevitable toll. And as I'm reading this description, I'm just wondering, what was your journey like from just being somebody who first attempted writing to actually getting published? I mean, was it anything like Fiona? I mean, was it anything like Shepard?
No, I had to completely imagine Susan Shepard, and so that whole thing was really an experiment in being imagining myself as somebody who I'm not, or I'm not female. I was never a veteran of a war, or a cop, or a mother, a single mother. With Fiona's Guardians, I sort of changed my thinking a little bit. Yes, there's this theme of immortality, but frankly, I just wanted to write a vampire story. I've always been fascinated by vampires. As a kid, watching those movies with Bela Lugosi or Christopher Lee. Again, I did notice back in the 1980s when I was watching these films, 70s, 80s, that there weren't many females. The female vampires that were presented were often presented without any agency. They were sort of slaves, if you will, to Dracula. Dracula had 3 wives, the brides and all that. So I wanted to have a woman vampire who was large and in charge, and all the humans are working for her. So that's how I created the story, and then I started pitching it to publishers and agents, and I eventually found a publisher in England who really liked it. Burton Mayer's Books in Bedfordshire, England, and that's how the book came about. It was released a little more than a year ago.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I'm sure you must come to contact with many young writers frequently, and I'm just wondering, in this era of Amazon Prime, streaming, and self-publishing, when anybody can really upload any document up and turn that into a book, what kind of advice do you give our writers or starting writers as far as getting established, getting promoted, and things like that?
I would say think of a couple of things first. As you are preparing to publish your novel, or at least finish it, think about how seriously you want to be taken. And then also think about how big an audience you are writing for, or what kind of audience you are writing for. So if you're writing a memoir or a collection of poems that's very personal to you, you may not want all the world reading your work. You might just want that for your family. Well, that's fine. And then in that case, you may also consider self-publishing. Or putting these stories or poems on Wattpad, a very popular self-publishing blogging kind of thing that you can share with other Wattpad readers. It's they're free. Anybody can contribute, and that's great. I think it's great, a great way for people to exercise the writing muscle, if you will, and hone their craft. If you are below the age of 75, and I would consider not self-publishing. I'm just going to suggest this, that you don't self-publish, that you take the opportunity to submit. You don't have to send out your entire work at first. You could, if you, as I did with my novel, publish a story as a chapter, rather a chapter as a short story. An early chapter of Fiona's Guardians. We introduced Fiona and Daniel, her main human guardian. And then that gave me confidence to publish another chapter as a short story and another. So I think I put out maybe 11 short stories, which later became chapters in the novel. And this allowed me to build relationships with publishers. It gave me confidence to know that I could get past gatekeepers. And so then I thought, yeah, I'm going to get a real publisher, a traditional contract publisher, and go for that. I mentioned 75 years old. That was a rough, if you're getting older, or if you're looking at and you just want to publish a book, go ahead and do it, get a good edit. But if you don't want to wait 10 years or 5 years to put your work out, that's a different story. But I'm 54. I was 54 when the book came out. And I felt like it was worth the time to try to get a traditional publishing contract, because I did want to be taken very seriously. I'm middle-aged, but I'm very much still at the beginning of my writing career.
So, well, would you say then that if you were to self-publish your book on Amazon, then that would be great as far as maybe expanding your base or getting an audience, but it's not quite the same level of success then as if you were to hold back and then try to submit shorter stories to publishers and all?
I think it remains a valid option, and there are some stories, some books that were self-published initially that succeeded. We are coming up on the Christmas season. It's worth remembering that Charles Dickens could not find a publisher for A Christmas Carol. He self-published that. He had previously been published, but you get the idea. The Martian by Andy Weir, that book was self-published initially. So that's a rare example of a novel that got traction very quickly and found an audience, and then later filmmakers to want to make it into a film. So there are exceptions to this, but I'm going to suggest, it's merely a suggestion, please, all you self-publishing writers out there who believe that is the correct path, you're doing something legitimate, but I wanted more. I wanted also to be taken more seriously, and I can still say that the bulk of the reviewers out there still consider a traditionally published novel, something that has been gone through a much more of an editing process to be a little bit more serious, and I think it remains the case today.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned something about adaptations. I understand that isn't there an actors group about to either turn Fiona's Guardians into either a play or maybe reenact short segments from the book? Or
this is probably the most exciting thing that has happened to me in my writing career. I work in a radio station, WNIJ, which you mentioned, and one of our midday hosts, Phil Masterton, is also an actor. And he is a member, or has done a lot of acting with this group called Artists Ensemble Theater. It is an all-professional acting company that, during the pandemic, they had to shut down all their live performances. So they got cleverer, and they said, we'll do a podcast. We'll have all these professional actors come in, and we'll do podcast presentations, very high quality, very, very well produced with sound effects, music, and then the actors speaking. So Mysterious Journey is the podcast, and it's available everywhere, including Spotify. And my novel, Fiona's Guardians, was adapted by one of the founders of Artists Ensemble Theater, Margaret Rather, who is a playwright. She took 3 chapters of my book, made a complete arc of it, and then they hired 7 union actors to come in and record the parts. She showed me the script. I loved the script. I thought that she did a brilliant job. And this thing is now available everywhere, and it is gold. I mean, I think from the listener standpoint, from the podcast audience standpoint, it works. I've been hearing very good things about it. But for a writer seeking further adaptations, film, TV, etc., this is gold, because now I can go to other people in the industry and say, this has been adapted once. It's high quality. Give it a listen. It's 23 minutes of your life. And why don't we talk about maybe making a short film, or perhaps do a fully staged play of this? The options are many, and I have been thinking about it a lot. And I would love, if there are any talented film producers and directors out there who are looking to adapt a novel into a screenplay, I am willing to have that conversation.
Wow. Well, this really, would you say that this really is kind of a golden age for adaptation with Amazon Prime and Netflix and so many venues now for stories to get out? I mean, it's almost like a quality glut.
Well, and now we're just focusing on the quality pieces. Yes, there's a lot of really good quality television, streaming television, and film out there. There's some that's because there's obviously it's such a demand. There's some that's maybe a little, not so great. But from what I've seen, I've developed opinions about the filmmakers and TV producers who I consider to be doing really great work. And, Mayor of Easttown comes to mind as a really great TV show on HBO, for example. I'm looking forward to the second season of that. Succession is another one. Yes, you're right. There is a staggering amount of content available on streaming devices or streaming channels, and again, you can get these you consume this content anywhere through your phone, your Roku, right. Or you can just go out to the old-fashioned movie theater and watch a movie. Well, that's cool too, but I would like to think that there's a place for an alpha female vampire and her human guardians out there, and I think maybe there'd be an audience for it. So
I think there is. I think there is a place for an alpha female vampire. So.
Yeah.
So what's up as far as 2022 for you as far as promotions? I mean, what kind of conventions do you go to?
Well, now the conventions are starting to open up. I'm a member of the Chicago Writers Association, so they have their annual convention that they're going to bring back this summer. There are, I understand that there are, through my dad, who's an extra in Hollywood. He acts on films in Hollywood. He has told me that there are pitch conferences and workshops out there for Hollywood producers, and so he and I may go out to one of those in September. I also have to write another book. I mean, I don't have to, but I sense that there's an audience that wants to know more about Fiona and her story and her guardians, including Daniel. And I'm going to spend some time this winter really bearing down on writing the next book. So it's the sequel.
Thank you very much for this interview. This was very informative. Because in my mind, I mean, I also write, and so I'm thinking about, well, what are the avenues? What are the options to go out, realistically? And
there are many. There's so many paths. There are so many paths to getting your work out there. Right. Find the one that works for you. It may be a traditional publishing contract. It may be a self-publishing contract. Right. But find your readers. And of course, one way to do that is through finding reviewers. You need to get legitimate reviewers out there who will trumpet your work if it's that good. So all the best with your writing, Dwayne. I hope that you get that your book becomes a bestseller.
Well, thank you very much, and I hope the same for your book. And I can't wait to see future adaptations.
Oh, yeah.
I think it'll probably go beyond the actors group that's doing yours. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in the future. So thank you for being with us. Oh, do you have anything else you needed to say?
No, Dwayne. Thank you very much for inviting me. This has been really fun talking with you.
All right. Well, thank you for this interview, and of course, thank you all for watching out there, and thanks for watching the Walkertown Reports. And we'll see you next time.